So this is my favorite version of the Pomeranian dog. It's so soft and adorably cute, but for beginners they may have a little bit of difficulty with this style of yarn. So I'm going to show you how, once you've made the easier version, then you can try and attempt this version, which is a lot of fun to make, and it looks harder to make than it really is. So I'm going to be making this one with you on video tutorial. So for mine, I used one skein of each of the different colors, but you could use just one color if you wanted to. I just like to mix it up. And also I just love this yarn, so I use it for different projects. This is the same yarn that I used for my alpacas. So I bought a couple extras in case I wanted to use them again, which I am, for the Pomeranian. So I'm using Yarn B for the moment, one skein of the almond color, and here's some information about this yarn, 3.5 ounces, 82 yards. And again, it's the almond color. And then I also had one skein of the cream colored yarn. And then I also used I Love This Yarn Metallic, and the color is ivory, so it's ivory metallic. And you'll have plenty of this yarn left over. This is some of my leftover yarn. I've already made one, and this is my second Pomeranian that I'm making with this yarn. For the tongue, I used I Love This Yarn. The color is soft pink. Here's some information about this yarn. You can use your favorite 15mm safety doll eyes, and these have the metal backing, so I like the metal backing or the plastic backing for my safety doll eyes. Or you can pick a pair of anime eyes. So again, I printed these onto fabric. So this is actually fabric that I can sew onto the crochet, and it turns out really well. So I used one of mine with this style of yarn with safety doll eyes, and then the other one I'm using the anime eyes, so you can see how it looks on the difference between the safety doll eye and an anime doll eye. For the tail, I used my Clover pom-pom maker. I just like this one. It's about a 5.5 inch across. Let me just double check. It goes 5.5. Actually, about 5 inches across. But the cardboard I made is 5 inches by 5.5 inches. And if you want to make your own pom-pom, that's when I use the cardboard, and again it's 5 inches across and then 5.5 inches in height. And if you don't know how to use cardboard to make the pom-pom, you can go to my Crochet Owl baby hat video tutorial, and I show you how to do that. And then of course I like my Dritz upholstery needles for attaching the legs, and again I got the package that includes the 6, 8, 10, and 12 inch sizes, but I usually use the 10 and 12 inch size. When you're using this style of yarn, you're going to need your 6mm crochet hook, as well as a tapestry needle with a large eye on it. And I still use my DMC yarn threader to help get the yarn through the eye of the needle sometimes. And then also you'll need a pair of scissors. And for this video tutorial, I'm using a safety doll nose, and the safety doll nose that I'm using is a 20mm, and it has a plastic backing. I like the plastic or metal backings the best. So I started with my almond colored yarn for the head, and you're going to take your yarn and you're going to fold it over on itself to form a loop. Take your 6mm crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. And then you're just going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then bring the yarn through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down. But then kind of lift the loop a little bit on the crochet hook, because you don't want the loop too tight on the crochet hook because you can't see the stitches. So kind of pull up on your crochet hook to kind of open that stitch up a little bit. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for your first chain. Hold that first chain, pull up on the hook again to make the stitch a little bit larger. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for your second chain. So now you're going to put 7 stitches into that first chain that you made. So take your crochet hook, go into that first chain that you made, bring up a loop, and again, you don't want to make your stitches too tight. So kind of lift up a little bit on the hook, then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, go through both loops for your first single crochet. And then just give a little slight tug on the hook to kind of open up the stitch a little bit. Then you're going to go right back into the same stitch. And then instead of a magic circle, you're making all of your stitches into that second chain from the hook. Bring up another loop, and now you're going to make your second single crochet. Pull up a little bit on the loop, go back into the same stitch, and you're kind of turning it as you make your stitches. It's my third one. You can see how it's difficult where you can't see the stitches. It's the fourth. Fifth. Now you could use the magic circle, I just wouldn't recommend it because it's just difficult with this style of yarn. Even I don't even like to use it. I prefer this method because you don't see the center anyway. It's too much fur. So now I have 7 stitches in there. So you can see that it's hard, you can't even really see it. So then what you're going to do is you're just going to try to go into the first stitch. And you want to make sure that you try and grab both loops. So you know that the first stitch is here somewhere. So I just went into that first stitch, and don't pay attention. If you skip a stitch, it's no big deal. So don't worry about it. Then just bring up a loop and then make a single crochet. And you're going to make 2 single crochet into that same stitch. Or try to. Then you're going to make 2 single crochet in every stitch around until you count 14. So far I have 2 stitches in the same stitch. I'm going to try to make 2 more stitches into the next stitch, which will make 4. And then you're just going to stop when you make 14, and I'll show you what to do. So here's 3, 4, and again, you don't want to make your stitches too tight because I think I lost my loop. Just go back in. There. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you can see how it's getting larger, but you can't really see the stitches, but you're guessing you have about 14 stitches in there. So you don't have to stress too much about the stitch count. So now you're going to bring a yarn marker in. And I just used one of my scraps of yarn. And you're just going to place it right where you left off. So at this point, we're just making 2 single crochet into every stitch around until we get 40 stitches. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So now I'm going to go into where I think is the first stitch, grabbing both loops right after the yarn marker, and I'm going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. And again, I'm not making my stitches too tight. And you're going to make 2 single crochet in every stitch around until you get to the yarn marker. So far I have 2. Going into the next stitch for 3, 4. So remember, you're making 2 single crochet in every stitch around. 5, 6, 7, 8, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I'm going to have 20 stitches after this round. So again, we want 40 stitches in the round. So then just take and move your yarn marker up, and then you're just going to make 2 single crochet in every stitch around again. So go ahead, finish 2 single crochet in every stitch around until you get to the yarn marker, and then come back. So you can see how it's getting larger and larger, which is what you want. And so now I have a stitch count of 30. So if you have a stitch count of 40, then you're just going to maintain that stitch count. So every time you get back to the yarn marker, you're going to try to maintain your stitch count of 40. But for me, I still have a stitch count of 30. So now I want to end up with this next round being a stitch count of 40. So that means that when I reach the opposite side of the yarn marker, I should have 20 stitches on this side, and then finish up with 20 stitches on this side. So now I'm going to move the yarn marker up, and so that's how you can gauge your stitch count, because now you want to start paying attention to the stitch count. So no matter what number you come up with the stitch count, remember that halfway you should have half of 40, and then by the time you get here you should have 40 stitches. So now I'm going to make 2 single crochet in every stitch until I get to the halfway mark, and then I should have 20. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so far I have 16. I'm right on the stitch count that I want. So now I have 20 stitches. So I'm right at the halfway mark with the 20. So now I'm going to make 20 more stitches to end up with 40 at the yarn marker. So now I have a stitch count of 40, and you can see how I have the nice size to mine. I'm going to go ahead and measure it for you. So here each box is 1 inch, so I have about 4 inches across in diameter. And now you want to maintain your stitch count of 40. So when you move your yarn marker up, now you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch, and when you reach the bottom you should have 20 stitches, and when you reach the other side you should have 20 stitches. So now you do want to maintain your stitch count of 40 for the next 5 rounds. So now I'm at the halfway mark and I have 20 stitches. Now if you don't end up, if you're not getting close to 20 when you're at the halfway mark, remember you can make 2 single crochet in the same stitch in order to get your 20 stitch count at the end. So if you need to make 2 single crochet wherever to make your stitch count of 20 here, then that's a trick that I use to maintain the 40 stitch count when I make my rounds. So then after you finish your 5 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch, you should have a little cup. And at this point you're going to join your cream colored yarn, and if you're just using the same colored yarn, the almond, then you just continue on. But now if you're going to be changing colors, then you just take your crochet hook, go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop, and then take your cream colored yarn, and then just bring up a loop with the cream colored yarn. Oop, lost my loop. Try that again. Then you can take and tie a knot with the previous colored yarn. And then just cut the previous colored yarn. So now you're ready to crochet with the cream colored yarn. Now it is kind of hard to see the difference between the two colors, so you can use a yarn marker. Just place it right where you left off. And you want to maintain your stitch count of 40. So again, you should still have 20 stitches by the time you reach the halfway mark, and then 20 more stitches back to the yarn marker to maintain a stitch count of 40. And you're going to make one single crochet in every stitch for 4 rounds. So remember, each round you're maintaining your stitch count of 40. So now I've finished the 4 rounds of one single crochet in every stitch. You can see how you have a nice cup for the head. So now just leave a large loop of yarn where you left off. We're going to come back to this part of the head. Now this will be the back of the head. You can go ahead and remove your yarn marker. And this will be the front of the head. So where you left the loop of yarn is towards the back of the head. And we're going to start making the face. So go ahead and set this part aside for now, and I'm going to show you how to make the snout. You're also going to need your 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. So now you're going to get your I Love This yarn, or whatever medium 4 100% acrylic yarn that you're using. I'm just using my ivory metallic. And with this style of yarn, you're going to need your 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. So make sure you get your 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. Then you're going to take and fold the yarn over on itself to form a loop. Take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. And then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down and cinch the loop around your crochet hook. And then I'm just going to show you 4 chains on video tutorial, but you're going to need a chain of 12. Just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, 4. So go ahead, finish a chain of 12. After you finish your chain of 12, you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So just count back 1, 2, put your crochet hook into that second chain from the hook, bring up a loop, and then make a single crochet. And then you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across, except for the last stitch. In the last stitch, you're going to make 3 single crochet into the same stitch. So now I've reached the last stitch. I'm going to make 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and then you're also going to be turning your work so that you're going to work on the opposite side. We're going to be working in rounds. And then you're going to go behind the loose yarn end to bury it as you crochet. So now you can see where we made the single crochet across, and now we're going to be working on the opposite side. So you just go right into the next stitch, go behind the loose yarn end, bring up a loop, and then make a single crochet. And then you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across, except for the last stitch. In the last stitch, you're going to make 3 single crochet into the same stitch. So now I've reached the last stitch. I'm going to go ahead and trim my loose yarn end that I was burying. And then I'm just going to finish with 3 single crochet into the last stitch to finish the round. So now I have 25 stitches in the round. I'm going to take my yarn marker, place it right where I left off, and you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around for 3 rounds. So 3 rounds of only 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So now you can see that I finished 3 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch. Then you're going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and just pull enough yarn through to sew the snout onto the head. Then you can take, and I like to use the excess yarn to stuff the snout. Only because when you use this method, sometimes the holes are a little bit larger. So for stuffing, I usually use excess yarn. But before you stuff it, we're going to turn it so that where you finished off will be towards the bottom. And then we're going to place the nose. So you want to center the nose, and also this is the center line. You want to go 1 round up. So 1 round up in the center. And then that's where I placed my nose. If you want, you could place it into the center if you want to. That's where I liked having my nose placed. And then once you're happy with the placement, you can take and place the safety latch on the back. I guess there's a device that you could use to attach safety latches, but they're not that hard. They snap right into place, so I never have any difficulties placing mine. And then you have a secure safety nose. And now we're ready to sew the nose, or the snout, onto the head. So you can see how I put a little bit of yarn in here. And you can always add a little bit more yarn later when you get to the sides of the snout, because we're going to be sewing the bottom of the snout first, and then you sew the top of the snout, and then you finish with the sides. So now you want to take the front of the head. So remember, the loop of yarn where we left off should be towards the back. And then you're going to take and place the snout on the front of the head. And then just take your tapestry needle, and you want to make sure that your nose stays straight. And then you can kind of turn your work upside down, because you want to sew the bottom of the snout first, and you want to leave the last round of the head free. So you want to sew it 1 round up. And the reason for that is we still need to crochet along the bottom of the head, so you don't want to mess up the stitches on the bottom round. Then just take and sew the bottom portion of the snout first. So just go in and out, making sure that the nose stays straight, and then just sew the bottom of the snout only. Then after you finish sewing the bottom of the snout, you could turn the head back over, and then you're just going to place the top of the snout. And I placed the top of the snout just above the white, where I changed colors with the white, or the cream colored, and then yarn. And then you just want to take the snout, make sure that the nose stays straight. You can position the snout, and then just take your tapestry needle and sew the top portion in place. Then, after you sew the bottom and the top, you can take and place more yarn into the snout to kind of poof it out a little bit more before you sew the sides down. Then you have your adorable snout in place, and we're ready to place the eyes. Now when you use the regular safety doll eyes, you can see how I placed the one eye just above the snout with just about 1 millimeter or 2 of fur between the snout and the eye. And about the middle of the safety doll eye is lined up with the edge of the snout. And the same thing on the other side of the snout, about midway of the safety doll. The safety doll eye. And then I have about 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches in between the eyes. Now, if you're using your printout on the fabric paper, you're going to cut around the eye. So I just took and trimmed close to the eyelashes. So I just followed the eyelashes, and I also followed the edge of the eyebrow because I like the color of the eyebrow. And that's how I trimmed the eye, and I did the same thing for the other eye. So now you want to get your eyes and you want to figure out where you're going to be gluing them onto the head. So I like to use my handy dandy glue gun. Works great. So I'm letting that heat up right now. And you need to take your eyes. This is what it looks like after I cut them out. And then I use the side of the snout and midline along the eye to line up the eyes. And I want to leave a little bit of a space, not much, about a 1 millimeter to 2 millimeter space between the snout and the eye. So this is how you can see how midline with the eye is along the side of the snout. And that's how I want to place the one eye. And then the other eye, I'm going to place the same way on the other side. And you want to make sure that both eyes line up. Now on my eyes, I want to make the little heart that goes on the eye. So I just used my little marker pen. You can use any color marker that you want. And then this is what it looks like after I drew the heart in. Looks really good. So for mine, I placed the hot glue onto the back of the fabric backing, and there is a little piece of paper that you can peel off, but I'm going to leave it on. I left mine on the fabric so it makes it a little bit sturdier of an eyepiece. So this is what it looks like after I put the glue onto the back. And then I'm just going to take and line up the eye again. And then it sticks right to the fabric. And you want to repeat the same thing with the other eye. And then you just want to make sure that the eyes are even. And now the eyes are ready to be sewn in place. You'll need a sewing needle and thread for if you're using the anime eyes to sew them in place. So now I just used my white thread and sewing needle to sew the anime eyes all around the border. I just used a single strand of the thread, and then I came up from the wrong side and then just bring the thread through. And then on the right side you want to make sure that you make very small stitches. So I'm going very close to where I exited and then just go right back in to tie a knot. And then you can take, and what I did was I went right outside of the eye. So I'm right next to the eye with my needle. I went through the crochet work. and then make sure you kind of move the fur to the side and then bring the thread through. So the real thing that's holding this is the glue. So basically what these stitches are doing is kind of keeping the outer edge against the crochet work. So now I can go right back through the white portion only. Don't go over the design, and then just go right back in. And then that creates a stitch in the crochet work and the eyepiece to hold the eye down. And you're going to repeat that all the way around, being careful not to go over the design of the eye. So on this part where I have the little purple eyebrow, I'm going just underneath of the color change for the purple eyebrow in the white portion. And then I'm just going over just a very small stitch. And then going back through. So you can see the difference between the side that I sewed down and the side that's just glued. So that's why I like the look of the sewed down portion. Then you don't have the flaps. So this is what it looks like after I'm finished. It looks really good. I love the way it turns out. These anime eyes work perfectly. And then now you can add your tongue if you want to. I'm going to add a tongue to this one as well. So to make the tongue, I'm using my soft pink colored yarn. And I'm going to start with a magic circle. Just drape the yarn across your 4 fingers. Use your thumb to stabilize. And then wrap the yarn around your 2 middle fingers twice. And then hold it in place with your pinky and your thumb. Then take your 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. Bring up a loop. And then place 3 single crochet into the magic circle. Then hold the base of the 3 single crochet, and then you can close it up. Then go ahead and just finish off. Just yarn over and just pull enough yarn through to help sew the tongue in place. Then you can just position the tongue and then just sew it in place. I just sew right along the back of the tongue. So now we're ready to close the head. So you can go back to where we left off on the back of the head. So remember that you need to switch back to your 6 millimeter crochet hook. Take your yarn marker, place it right where you left off, and then you're just going to make 1 single crochet into 5 stitches. And then after you make 1 single crochet and 5 stitches, then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. So you go into the next stitch, bring up a loop. You have 2 loops on the hook. Go into the next stitch and bring up a loop. Now you have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 for a single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. 1 single crochet into 5 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. Now you can go ahead and place craft stuffing into the head, and if you have any remaining stitches before the yarn marker, just place 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches. Then just move your yarn marker up to where you left off, and then you're just going to make 1 single crochet into 4 stitches. And then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. 1 single crochet into 4 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. As you're closing, you'll see that the hole is getting smaller and smaller, and you can continue to add craft stuffing as needed. And then I had a couple remaining stitches that I just put one single crochet into each of the remaining stitches. Then just move your yarn marker up, and then you're ready for your next decrease round. So for this decrease round, you're going to make one single crochet into 3 stitches, and then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. One single crochet into 3 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around. So I added a little more craft stuffing to mine, and then I had again some leftover stitches that I just placed one single crochet into the remaining stitches. Then I moved my yarn marker up and just make one single crochet into 2 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. And then just repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. One single crochet into 2 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around. Then you can see I'm almost closed. Then for the next decrease round, just move your yarn marker up, and then you're just going to make one single crochet into 1 stitch, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you just repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. Then you can see that I'm almost closed. Make sure you have enough craft stuffing in the head. Then just remove the yarn marker, and then you're just going to make single crochet 2 stitches together until you're almost closed. So you just keep going around and single crocheting 2 stitches together. And then I'm almost closed. Then you can go ahead and slip stitch it closed. So just take your crochet hook and go into a stitch, and then yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. And then I'm almost done. I'm just going to make one more slip stitch, and then just double check because it's hard to see the holes. I don't see any holes. I closed it completely. Then you can just finish off. Just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through, and bring enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then just shape the head, and then I'll show you how to bury the loose yarn end. It's buried the same way as with regular styled yarn. So just take and place the yarn on your tapestry needle, and then just go anywhere in the work, and then come out anywhere on the head, and then just pull the loose yarn end through, and then just trim it. Then you could set the head aside while I show you how to make the ears. So for the ears, you're using your almond colored yarn, and you're going to take the yarn, fold it over on itself to form a loop, and you're using your 6mm crochet hook. Go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down, and then cinch the loop around your crochet hook, and you can make it a little bit loose, so just kind of lift up on your hook so that the loop is not tight on the crochet hook. Then you're going to make a chain. You're going to make a chain of 10. I'm just going to show you 4 of them on video tutorial. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for your first chain. Lift up just a little bit. You don't want the loop to be too tight on your crochet hook, so you want kind of a loose chain. Yarn over, turn the hook upside to go through the loop for 2 chains. 3, 4. So go ahead, finish a chain of 10, and then come back. Now you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So you just count back 1, 2, and you can actually see the stitches between the fur, or you can feel it. And then just go right into that stitch and bring up a loop, and make a single crochet. So that's your first one. And then you're just going to make a single crochet in every stitch back across. And you should have about 9 stitches when you're finished. And try not to make your stitches too tight. So that was my third one. Fourth. Fifth. Now, at this point, you can decide if you want to make a larger or a smaller ear. If you want a larger ear, then you're going to keep your stitch count of 9 for 2 more rows, but I'm just going to show you one because I'm not going to make a larger ear for this one. So then, if you want to maintain, the same number of stitches, you chain 1, turn your work, and that first chain 1 counts as your first stitch for this second row. So we've already finished the first row, and then the chain that we made is called a starting chain. So we had a starting chain of 10, and then our first row had 9 stitches, and now we're making our second row of 9 stitches. So we have our chain 1 counts as 1, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop for your second, single crochet, next stitch for your third single crochet or stitch, next stitch for your fourth, next stitch for your fifth, sixth, seven, 8, and 9. So we maintained our stitch count of 9 for that second row. And like I said, if you want a little bit larger ear, then you would make one more row of 9 stitches. But now I'm going to start making the curve of the ear. So I'm not going to chain 1. I'm just going to turn my work, and then I'm going to make a single crochet into the next stitch for 1, next stitch, a single crochet for 2, next stitch for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now we have 8 stitches in the row. Then you're just going to turn your work, go into the next stitch for 1, next stitch for 2, next stitch for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So then you're going to turn your work, go into the next stitch for 1 single crochet, next stitch for 2, next for 3, next for 4, 5, and 6. Then you're going to turn your work, go into the next stitch for 1 single crochet, next stitch for 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're just going to make 2 more. So turn your work, next stitch for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then our last row, turn your work, go in the next stitch for 1, next stitch for 2, and then you're going to slip stitch into the last stitch. So go into that last stitch, yarn over, bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch, then finish off, just yarn over, and then just bring enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then you have one ear complete, and you need 2 of these, so go ahead and make one more. So now after you make the 2 ears, you're going to take the loose yarn end where you finished off, and we're going to bury it. And how I buried it is I just kind of weaved it through. So find a gap if you can, and then just go in and out, weaving the yarn, the loose yarn end, into the work. Then you can take and just trim it. Go ahead and bury the loose yarn end where you finished off. You can always bury the other loose yarn end where we started later after we sew the ear in place. But for the tip of the triangle or the ear, just bury the loose yarn end. Now you want to take the ear and you want to lay it flat in the position that you want to sew it in place on the head, and then take your tapestry needle in the same colored yarn, and you're only going to sew along the base of the ear. So for mine, I just took, after I positioned it, and then just brought the yarn through. Sometimes you have to jiggle it a little bit to bring it through. And then you want to leave a little bit of a loose yarn end for burying into your work. Then you want to position the ear again. Make sure you have it positioned how you want it. So you may have to reposition it. And then I'm going to tie a knot. With the loose yarn end that I already have in place. And then just make sure that the ear is sewn where you want it and is secure. And then you repeat the same thing with the other ear. First I'm going to show you how, I have to go back because I have a loose yarn end here that I need to tie a knot to. So I'm going to go back to that one. So I'm just going to come out right at that point. And then tie a knot. And then you can go ahead and trim. Make sure you leave a long enough loose yarn end for burying. And then you have your loose yarn ends that need to be buried. But the one ear, however you sew it on, the other ear has to be sewn on the exact same way. So for mine, the top of the ear I positioned about midline with the safety doll eye and the snout. And then the bottom portion of the ear is about midline with the center of the eye. Now I'm going to give you a measurement because you can't see the stitches. So I'm just going to give you a measurement. So from the eye, I'm approximately about 1.5 inches from the edge of the eye. And then with the safety doll eye, I'm just going to show you with the safety doll eye. I can bring it into view. There we go. So the measurement of that is, let's see, from the eye, it's about the same, about 1.5 inches. And that's from the edge of the safety doll eye, so about the same. And then for the top of the ear with the safety doll eye, I'm going to show you how far I went with that. So for mine, I went about 2.5 inches from the safety doll eye when I sewed the ear in place, if you like the look with the safety doll eye. And then all you do is just bury the loose yarn ends the same way. Just go right in where you tied the knot and come out anywhere on the head. And then give a gentle tug to the loose yarn end and then just trim it. And then this is what it looks like after I sewed the ears in place. So now you can set the head aside while I show you how to make the body. So for the body, to help conserve my yarn a little bit, I went ahead and just made the same way as the head, except the head, remember we went up to a stitch count of 40. Well, to help conserve my yarn a little bit, I made this body a little bit smaller, so I only increased to 30 stitches. So I'm going to get you started again. I'm using my cream or white colored yarn, and again I'm not using the magic circle. I'm going to be first making a slip stitch, so just fold the yarn over on itself to make a loop, and you're using your 6mm crochet hook. Go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb, then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for your slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that slip knot down, and then you can kind of lift up a little bit on your crochet hook to make the stitch a little bit larger. So again, we already did this, so I'm not going to go real slow. I'm just going to kind of get you started again. So you're just going to make a chain of 2. There's 1 and then 2, and then I'm just going to go right into that first chain that I made and then just place 7 single crochet into the first chain or the second chain from the hook. So that's 3. Then I'm going to start making 2 single crochet in every stitch around for 1 round. And then I'll start using my yarn marker. So I'm going to the first stitch and then just make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. There's 3, 4, 5, 6. I usually stop when I get to 14. So 2 single crochet in every stitch. There's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14. So that's just a guesstimate, of course. I have no idea how many I really did, but that's always a good. I started with 7 single crochet, and then I tried to make 2 single crochet in every stitch around for a stitch count of 14. Then now I'm going to try to get the stitch count right. So I want to stop when I get a stitch count of 30. So again, I'm going to make 2 single crochet in every stitch back to the yarn marker. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 12. 14. 16. 20. So I'm going to end up this round with 22. So now for this next round I'm going to try to get a stitch count of 30. And how I do that is I go ahead and move the yarn marker up, and then I always use the halfway point, the same way we did for the head, to help me get to the stitch count that I want. So I should have 15 stitches on this side and 15 stitches on this side. So there's 1, 2, 6, 8, 14. I'm going to add one more right here to make a 15. So you can see I have 15 stitches on this side. Now I just need 15 on this side to make a stitch count of 30. So this one makes 13, 14, and 15. So now I have a stitch count of 30. So now you're just going to maintain your stitch count of 30 for 18 rounds. So you want 18 rounds of a stitch count of 30. So go ahead, finish 18 rounds with your stitch count of 30, and then come back. So then after you finish the 18 rounds of one single crochet in every stitch, go ahead and place the craft stuffing into the body, and then you're going to close it the same way that you did for the head, except you're going to start with a one single crochet into 3 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. And then repeat that pattern all the way around, back to the yarn marker, one single crochet into 3 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around. And then it would be 1 and 2 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. And then the next round will be 1 single crochet, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you would single crochet 2 stitches together and slip stitch closed. So again, it's the same way that we closed the head, except we're starting with 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then single crocheting 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around. If you have any stitches remaining, then you just make a single crochet into any remaining stitches. So now, after you finish the body, you can take and sew the head in place. So you're just going to take the head and place it onto the end of the body where you want to have the head. Make sure that the nose is in line with the front of the body. And you're going to always be positioning the head to make sure that it is straight on the body. Then, once you have the head positioned where you want it, you're going to take your tapestry needle with the same colored yarn, and I usually start in the back of the body and then go up into the head. So I'm going to come up, bring enough yarn through for burying into your work, and then just make sure my head's positioned where I want it, And then I'm going to go into the head and out the bottom of the head. I hooked my scissors. And then again, you always want to position, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go back into the head and then out right where I went into the head with my yarn, because I want to tie a knot. And then I will just cinch everything down. And then I'm going to go ahead and just tie a knot. Then I'm going to reposition the head again. And then I'm going to go back into the body and then back up into the head again. And then I'm going to sew all around the base of the head. And then the first time that you sew around, you may not get all of the stitches. You can make several rounds of sewing the head. And then you always just want to make sure that the front nose is midline with the front of the body. Midline with the front of the body. Then you can take your tapestry needle, and since I went out of the head, I'm going to go right next to the stitch where I came out on the head and then go down into the body. And then I'm going to come out of the body on the other side. And since I came out of the body, again, I can't stress enough keeping the nose straight with the front of the body. And since I came out of the body, I'm going to go a stitch over on the body, go up into the head, and then come out of the head. And then just pull the yarn through. And then that's how I sew the head to the body. And then again, you might have to make several rounds of sewing the head to the body.